Kia ora koutou. Welcome to the inaugural meeting of the Joint Shareholders Committee for Central District's Water. You have no idea how amazing it is to get to today in one piece. I think we'll just start with a kalakia before we get going, and then I'll come back and explain a few things. Hayden, if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
A te urunga tapu te Māori tui, te whiwhinga nuku tui, te whiwhinga rangi ke te whiwhinga mai waho, purutia mai waho, tāwhia mai waho. Tēnei te Māori ka whakapiki, tēnei te Māori ka whakakake, te Māori o tēnei tūpua, te Māori o tēnei ariki. Te Māori kirunga, te Māori erangi, te Māori kāpu, te kiwahu i te whaiau ki te aomarama. Wheti whanau haramai te toki haumea hui e tai ki e. Ka tika haere tununga roi mata ki rātou mā kungaro ki te pōtino ngā huatanga e pikautia nei rungi a tātou i tēnei wā, a kei te tangi, kei te tangi. A huri noa, a ki tātou te kanohi ora, huri noa te whare, tēnei te mihi atu. Hei tuatai i tanga ka mihi atu ki a koe, e Daniel, o tino rangi tāne e pupuru nei, i tēnei whakataua ki a te rongorito, kei hāwea te marae o hine, o tino ngā rangi tāmiro, ngā wai tāmiro, e hono hono kauai tāua ngai karanga iwi o tino taki timu waka, kura hau pō waka, tainui waka e tūnei. Huri taku reo ki ngā koro matua o tēnā rohe, tai rawa mai ki a koe te mananui e Grant, me hi atu ki a koe o tino tēnei whare o tātou. Tēnei rōpu e purutia nei, te whakaaro tahi mō ngā wai e rere nei, kei te mihi tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, Hayden, thank you very much for that. So just before we get into the agenda proper, I just thought I'd explain a couple of things, how things are going to go today. So we've got a little bit of swapping out of chairs, and we're also, given it's the inaugural meeting and we haven't had a chance really to meet, we do want to do some introductions at some point, but we'll do that during item 7 when the independent chair gets in the seat, and we'll do that then. And until then, you've got me. So first of all, just apologies, and I'm not aware of any apologies. Everyone's here, thank you. Notification of additional items, I'm not aware of any. There being none. And declarations of interest. Just on this, Hannah sent out an email and asked people just to provide her with your standard declarations that we can put on the register, but if there are any declarations of interest in relation to the items on the agenda today, if you could just sort of note those. No, great, so we'll move on. And I'm not aware of any public comment, so given that, we can go straight into the first item, which is the use of standing orders. And invite Palmerston North City Council Governance Manager Hannah White to the stand, I was going to say, but that's not right, to the table.
Kia ora tātou, thank you for being in our chambers today. I am Hannah, I'm Governance Manager at Palmerston North, and I have the honour of presenting the Palmerston North Standing Orders to you for your consideration for use for this joint committee. So you'll be aware that this committee has been established under the Local Government Act, and the Local Government Act requires that each council have a set of standing orders and that every decision of every council is made under those standing orders. And as a joint committee, this committee is a committee of each of the councils. Thus, we need to agree which set of standing orders we're going to use, just so that we can move forward procedurally. So the recommendation before you is that you adopt Palmerston North City Council's standing orders. I have circulated that in the Teams folder, which has been sent to all of the members. I appreciate it is different for most people around the table, and that we will learn together. Ultimately, a set of standing orders is a set of meeting procedures to ensure transparency and fair decision making. So I think probably separate to this meeting, as well as a get to know each other, at some point it would be useful to have a conversation around what is going to work for this table and to work through that together. In the meantime, it is a long document. Most of it sets out requirements in the law. There are parts that are peculiar to Palmerston North. Generally, I can summarise it as saying that we run quite a formal ship here, in that officers like myself will come to the table to answer any questions that you might have about an item and give you our best advice on that. Then we'll remove ourselves from the table, and at that point, someone from the committee would choose to either move the recommendation that's in the papers or an alternate motion. And once there's a seconder to that, then that is the point that's then for debate. Everything comes through the chair, and so if the chair wants to move something, they will do that. Otherwise, they'll look to the table to do that. Same with questions, they'll come through the chair. Ultimately, once you're in debate, it's accepted practice here that you would speak once unless you were the mover. So the mover would have the first right to speak and would also close off the debate. And at the point of that right of reply, that's when the chair would put the motion to the vote. If there was an amendment put, I'm not necessarily expecting that that might happen today, but the rules, the set of procedures for that would be that at that point the debate moves to focus on what that amendment is, and if you haven't, anyone can speak to that amendment, and then if that amendment is agreed, that then becomes a part of the substantive motion, and then we would continue the debate on that. Of course, if you'd already spoken to the substantive, you've had your time, so we would just continue in that way. There will be many questions. I will be beside the chair, and we'll learn together. Hopefully that's a sufficient summary for now, Chris.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Hannah? Okay. So I just want to come back and, well, you can guide me through what you do from. I'm not used to sitting in this chair. Normally I'm sitting in that chair. Much easier. Yeah. Okay, so would someone like to move that motion? Mayor Smith as seconder. Mayor Andy Watson. Just call for a vote. Does anyone want to speak? Do you want to speak, Mayor Smith?
Push that red button. Yeah, got it. Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. Thank you. Look, just the standing orders are, you'll like to move those, obviously, but they're just a guideline for us, and as we go through our hui will be, and other meetings, we'll understand how things go. But very happy to move it, and thanks to Mayor Andy for seconding.
Okay, now we move for the vote. Hopefully it's straightforward. You just push, forward. That's right. Yep. And that's passed unanimous. Well, not everyone's voted, so we're missing two. Who are we missing?
We'll use that as a practice and we'll run it again.
Okay, we'll just run that again. If you just, now you've had your practice, we'll just run that again. If you could just vote again, please. Did you want to say something, Danielle?
No.
You're, okay. All right, who's missing? We're just trying to work out who's missing. Oh, yeah. Do you want us just to tell us what your vote is then? For? Okay. Done. That's passed 9 votes for and none against. Right, so at this stage we're going to move on to the appointment of the Shareholder Committee Independent Chair, and at this stage Dr. Gallivan's going to leave the room. Do you want to just shut the so we can, he agreed to do that because obviously we want to allow you to have a sort of free and frank debate in relation to that. Yeah, I'll just stay in the chair and speak to this. So we're on to item 7, which is the appointment of the chair and the deputy chair. What I'm proposing to do with this is we've got 5 recommendations in the paper, and I'm proposing that we go through to 4, treat that, and then assuming it goes the way I expect it to, we'll then ask Chris Gallivan to come back in, and he can take the chair at this point, and then I will be go down the other end. So look, just by way of introduction, you'll be aware that this committee has to have an independent non-voting chair. You'll also see that the committee needs a deputy chair, and to maintain momentum through the process, the project oversight group has undertaken some pre-work in a number of areas just to help keep the process going and to allow the committee to make a quicker decision today. Identifying an independent chair was one of those matters. This paper sets out in brief the process that has been followed to find a candidate and to bring a recommendation to you. In addition to the process that's been set out in the paper, there's one more thing I can just confirm, and that is that we did undertake some reference checking with Chris Gallivan. So I myself undertook three reference checks with Professor Paul Spoonley at Massey that he'd worked with, Professor Jeff Jameson, also from Massey, and the chair of the Te Manawa board that Chris is a member on, and also Danny Goddard, I think it's pronounced, sorry, and he was the co-CEO at Sisters of Compassion with Chris, and so I spoke to all 3 of them, and I can just confirm that their checks were very positive and there was no matters raised of concern. So like I said, I propose we're going to go through recommendations 1 through 4 first, and then we'll go through the process of the deputy chair, and at that stage I think I'll just take any questions.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to move 1, 2, 3 and 4 around the appointment of Mr. Gallivan as the independent chair and his appointment period, the remuneration, and delegate to finalising a letter of engagement. So I'm happy to move that if I can find a seconder for that.
Happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Mayor Burney. Any other questions or anyone has? No, we're flying. On that basis then, should we just vote on those 4? Yeah, so we'll vote on recommendations 1 through 4. Marge, have you voted? Do you want to just confirm your vote verbally, Marge? Yeah. Okay. Given that, that is passed, 9 votes for and none against, and I will go and get Dr. Gallivan and tell him he's in. Thank you very much.
Well, ina iwi huri huri nei, nā mai haere mai, kai tēnā iwi, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou, katoa, kia ora everybody. It's a great honour to be the inaugural independent chair. And before I perhaps step through a few points of what you can expect from me as your chair, I might just take a moment to introduce myself. No airani o ka tupuna, ia tai mai o ka tupuna ki Aotearoa, ra I te rautau te kama iwa, ko rangi tautau te waka, I whānau mai o I te wai harakiki te wai punamu. I tipu ahau I rarau I te maunga tapawai o ui noku. I tipu ahau I rarau I te taha o te awa wairau. I tipu aki o I te wai harakiki. Nō reira, ko Aotearoa toko whenua tipu, ko Chris toko ingoa, ko Gallivan, ko te ingoa o toku whānau. E tēnei wā ki te papa I oia hau I noho ana. Kia ora everybody. My name is Chris Gallivan. I am deeply honoured to be your first independent chair. My wife and I, Cade, came to the Manawatu about 10 years ago from Te Wai Purnam in the South Island. We actually have missed the South Island, but find ourselves deeply connected and embraced in the Manawatu and the wider region. And we have committed ourselves over those years to, as people who define ourselves by our connection with community, to try and lean into impact. And this opportunity here, as we stand on the precipice of the creation of governance and management of some of the most significant infrastructure and service of our communities, is one of the greatest honours I know in my career, to be able to play a part as a team with you in the service of our whānau and our various communities. Before I go into perhaps a little more detail about what you can expect from me, I wonder if it's appropriate if we might go around the room and do some quick introductions. I'm very acutely aware that there's some people in the room that I have not really properly met. There will be an opportunity for kai after this, and I do hope that you'll be in a position to stay even for a moment to be able to share some time with me as we start this journey of getting to know one another and building up the trust and respect that we need to ensure that this committee and the structures and the decisions and the conversations that we need to have will run as smoothly as possible. It would be great if we could start with some introductions. Me, Andy, could we perhaps start with you?
Kia ora tātou, ko Andy Watson, ko Koramatua o Rangatike. nor tutanui aho. And for those who are fluent, I'm very careful about cores and nors there in that space. And Hayden and others will understand the definitions there. I'm the Mayor of the Rangitikei. I've been in that role for quite some time. I have spent a lot of time in Palmerston North. My grandfather was actually Mayor of this council many moons ago, and I'm taking the opportunity to say hello ahead of the residents there. But it's a real pleasure to be here. But the one thing I'd just like to say is I acknowledge the incredible amount of work by all parties to get us to here. All right. Up to you.
Ms Heaney.
Yep, just push down.
Tēnā tātou, ko Marge Hini ahau. He uri au mō ngā iwi o Mokai Pātea. Ngāti Whitikaupeka, Ngāti Ohoake, Ngāti Tama Kōpiri me Ngāti Hawati. O te rohe o Rangitikei. Tēnā koutou. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Mayor Smith.
Kia ora tātou, nau mai, haere mai, and a warm welcome to you all into our chamber here, and acknowledge you, Chris, as the chair, and my other mayoral colleagues and my other our other panel members here or committee members here today. I too just want to acknowledge all the work that's gone on before us to get to this place. Acknowledge my colleagues in the gallery from council, and look, we're starting what is going to be a great combination of three councils, our iwi partners, as we look towards bettering what we have in this water space. So, Mayor Grant Smith of the city, and great to be here. Kia ora, thank you.
Ms Harris.
Tēnā koutou katoa, tani whiti ki te rangi, ko rangitāni ki te whenua, ko Daniel Harris Takawingawa, ko ngā uri o rangitāni o Manawatu. I'd just like to congratulate you on your appointment as independent chair, and we look forward to working with you. I'd like to acknowledge all the iwi who are part of Ngā Tapu Wai o Hau, and we look forward to working with our council partners of Palmerston North City Council, Rangitikei and Horowhenua, to really make sure we're going to have the best and protected water across the region. So, ngā mihi.
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Green is good, eh? Yeah, thank you. Now I figured out what the technology is. Good afternoon all. My name's Dave Wilson, Deputy Mayor of Rangitikei District Council. I'm in my fourth term with the Rangitikei District Council, and have been fortunate enough to work with Mayor Andy for the entire length of those terms. Here we go again. We're about to embark on another ride and another journey, so I'm very much looking forward to really getting to know the people that are sitting around this table as we bring our thoughts and share our thoughts together, and make some good, positive, collaborative decisions. I think that's the important part for me. So nice to meet you all, those that I do know. Nice to see you again, those that I don't. Really looking forward to having the conversations with you. Thanks, Chris.
Kia ora, Councillor Wilson. Appreciate that. Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, colleagues. Great to be here. Sam Jennings, elected member with Horowhenua District Council. This is my third term, and throughout that time I've been a real pain in the backside to Mayor Burney, which is probably why I'm here, so keep an eye on me. Look, no, thank you to acknowledge all the efforts of Chris and the team behind the scenes, various council CEOs, and obviously Grant, Andy, Mayor Burney, and Danielle for all of your efforts as well, just in getting us to this point. So thank you very much.
Kia ora, Mr Tura.
Te mana o rotanga o Ngāti Raukawa ki te pupuru I te taongara ko te rangi Māori ko te whakapono. My name is Hayden Tūroa. I actually
whakapapa to all three of the waka represented on this board, Taki Timu, Kurahaupō and Tainui, but and deeply honoured to represent Tainui Confederated Tribes on this particular forum, alongside my tuakana Tiwana Tibu, who is my second in the space. Wanted to acknowledge every council here with the courage to work in this way, and it's not lost on me how historic this type of forum is, and this occasion where all of our collective iwi have come together to work in this way. And I want to congratulate Daniel in particular and Marge for their leadership shown to date. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, Mr. Tura. It's an honour to have you here. Ms. Councillor Zabellan.
Ngā mihi kia koutou. Excuse me. Mō tararua te maunga ko mga tano ka te awa ko ngai tahu te iwi, ko te runanga o maka whio kai kore o koe hapu, ko Katie Zabellan, tōku ingoa. I'm Katie Zabellan, I'm one of the Palmerston North City Councillors, and this is my second term, and I've had a particular interest in waters and process, so I find this has unified those interests beautifully. I'm really looking forward to working with you all. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Wandin.
Kia ora tātou, ko Bernie Wandin ahau. Privileged to be the Mayor of the Horowhenua, and look forward to working with you all, and especially Chris, thank you for taking on and expressing your interest in doing this role. It's going to be vital in terms of keeping us all working together so that we continue to deliver those crucial water services to our communities. And thank you all for Chris and his team too for all the work that's been done. Look forward to continuing the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I talked a little bit about the importance of the work that we're going to do here, but also I want to acknowledge that this is a pivotal step in a partnership which in some respects, in many respects, is very unique, and one in which we will be finding our way as a committee, but also as an organisation. It's an incredibly important partnership between Ngā Tapu Waihao, Rangitikei District Council, Horowhenua District Council and Palmerston North City Council. There is no one organisation that is above the other, and it's my job to shepherd us in a way that we grow in our trust and respect of each other. The terms of reference are extensive, but they ultimately revolve around two key aspects. And the first is to provide governance oversight, this committee, of the company that will soon be established in all of its sophistication, but also to provide a forum where the shareholders, through their representatives, are able to meet, discuss and coordinate. There's an article actually for the Institute of Directors, Judini Edgar, who said, and I think it's important, appointing an independent chair doesn't dilute oversight, it strengthens it. Independent governance provides transparency, specialist oversight, and greater assurance of the interests of the current and future communities, which I think is very important, are protected. It also refers to the Auditor General's report, Governance, Accountability and Council-Controlled Organisations, where it says that the CCOs hinge on relationships built on mutual trust and respect, and on having the right people with the right skills at the table. It goes on to say that public trust in water infrastructure isn't about clean drinking water. It's about confidence that decisions are being made in the public interest based on good data and long-term thinking. I can't promise that it's always going to be plain sailing. I can't promise that we won't face major issues and that we'll always agree. But what, as chair, I can promise you is that I will bring an ethos of transparency to our operation, of honesty, integrity, a good sense of humour, which may be needed from all of us at times, and to be visible and available and to be a good listener. I'll strive relentlessly to bring together consensus, but sometimes that won't be possible. And I do not shy away from hard conversations. But I'm a person who's driven by principle and values, and while that has not necessarily made me a good employee, I think and I hope it prepares me well for this independent chair position. So my unrelenting focus is on our communities, and our whānau, our families. Ultimately, that's what we are here for. And if I may pick a couple of chairs, if we may always remember when we meet that we actually have our community sitting here and that we're speaking on their behalf for the service that delivers that they deserve. I'm not precious or prissy, and I'm a trust-based empowerer of people. I'm not a micromanager, and ultimately I've worked very hard to be a collective collaborator. What can you expect of me? Well, you can expect that I will do my utmost to manaki us through any discomfort that comes with disagreement, to nurture us in the building of trust and respect, and to hold us and the company on occasions to account, to be available and to be open, to be a good listener, to someone who's open to learning, and to ask good questions, and on occasion, if need be, to be your champion and this committee's champion and defender, if and when required. I'm deeply proud of being one half of a bicultural foundation in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I generally bring a life perspective that I have learned more to learn from Māori than perhaps what Māori have to learn from me. And it is those attributes that I hope to bring to bear in my chairpersonship of this committee as we come together as a group and work as a team. So I look forward to getting to know you all better and to working with you. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Team, I've got 62 pages of standing orders here, which I've read, but don't have any practical, everyday experience of administering, much like many of you in this room. Please forgive me in advance for the mistakes that I will make in terms of the standing orders. They're incredibly formal. My hope is that we actually build up a trust and respect of each other, that we can become more informal and we can have actually discussion as opposed to rhetorical statement after rhetorical statement and talk past each other. That, I hope, and I'll signal, might be able to happen in different forums that are not this beautiful grand building and room, but as I suspect, not entirely conducive to the nuance of the conversations that we might have. So in between the meetings, I'd really encourage us to have conversations about where else we might be able to meet and be transparent and open to the community. But on occasion, it would be wonderful if that could be on marae, it could be in the Horowhenua, it could be, and I expect, in the rangatike. And so for us to look for opportunities where I think environment and forum matters, and we want that to complement our work. So thank you for my appointment. We're at clause 5, and no, we're not. We're at 7, item 7, and it's paragraph 5 where I take up here an appointment of the deputy chair. And if I just might remind members, if you flick to page 15, page 3 of the attachment 1 at the top of the page. Clause 5B, the deputy chairperson, 1, will act as the chair in the absence of an independent chairperson appointed pursuant to clause 5A, that's myself, and 2, be removed or replaced by the members of the Shareholders Committee. Do we have any nominees for the position of deputy chair? Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Mayor Andy Watson to the role of deputy chair, if I've got a seconder.
Do we have a Mayor Wandin? Happy to second that. We have a seconder. Let me just check whether Mayor Watson is accepting of that nomination.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept nomination and am quite prepared to step out of the room so that if there is any robust discussion, you can have it in private.
Thanks, Mayor Watson. I would ask before we open for discussion whether there are a few words or anything that you would like to say. No, you don't have to, but if there is.
Yes, thank you very much for that opportunity. I see my role principally, certainly in the short term, as making sure that the chair doesn't step in front of a bus, that he takes his personal safety to heart, because I expect the role is one of being in the wings to support and to be able to have a conversation with the chair and at times on behalf of all of us. I think the opportunity that we have in front of us is an incredible opportunity. For the Rangatike, we were given the opportunity a little bit later in the piece. This setup was originally going to be for us with Ruapehu Wanganui. Very, very pleased to be here and very much want this to succeed.
Thank you, Mayor Watson. You are the only nominee, but if you wouldn't mind stepping out for a moment while I open it up for discussion, that would be appreciated. You might want to close the door too, so we have a mover, we have a seconder. I'll just open it up for discussion. Councillor Wilson.
I got there. Thanks, Grant. Look, I am supportive of this motion, but I would like to acknowledge that I think the ability to be chair or deputy chair of this room fits among a number of people sitting around this table. But what I'm encouraged by is the comments that you made, Chris, as chair, in your opening comments about where you see this committee going. And I do believe that Andy certainly has the skill set to step into that breach and guide us in a similar guidance that you have set the platform for. So I'm happy to support the nomination, but I just acknowledge that I think the skill set to do it also sits around this table with a number of other members. So I think that should be acknowledged. Thank you.
As chair, I think anybody is more than capable here to have served the position of deputy. I'm very happy with that nomination and confident that I can work very strongly with Mayor Watson. So I echo those words, Councillor Wilson. Anybody else would like to speak to the motion? Mayor Smith, have you got any final words to write a reply?
Just make sure he doesn't go under a bus. Yeah. Thank you.
So the motion has been moved, it's been seconded, we've had a discussion, move to voting. Thanks, members. We've got 8, so there's one.
That's great.
Oh.
We actually made it there. We actually all did it that time.
I can say that they have checked my qualifications and my degrees, but they're not in math. Considering that all those eligible to vote have for, the motion has passed and Mayor Watson is duly elected. You're duly elected as the Deputy Chair, Mayor Watson. Congratulations. Moving on to item 8, the initial Shareholders Committee policies. There are a number of policies that we need to consider today. They are the Code of Conduct, the Conflict of Interest and Confidentiality. What I would say about these policies is that they're important that policies such as these exist, but it is my position that they will likely be iterative, that they will need some massaging and likely some suggestions on amendments for them to fit our purpose. And it is my proposal that we don't try and wordsmith those today, but rather than establish any formal subcommittees, that we have a more informal working group between meetings to work with council officials to track change suggestions, but you have my undertaking that no change would be made without bringing it back to this committee. But I will hand it over to Mr. Dyberg. Mr. Dyberg.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. What he said, really. You've just covered it.
Did I
pretty
just
much
steal
all
your
my notes.
thunder? I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. But yeah, look, I'm just happy to take any questions on that.
Is there any points of clarification or any questions for Mr. Dyberg before we move and second? I'll take them as a job lot. But any questions for Mr. Dyberg in the first instance? Oh. Ms. Harris.
Oh, kia ora, just picking up on what you're saying, we do have a couple of changes or additions we'd like to make to the Shareholders Committee terms of reference. So do they need to be shared today, or can they be covered off as part of this working group going forward?
Well, what I suggest is it would be good to hear those and that we could table them. Probably not just, at the moment it's for any questions for Mr. Dyberg, and if there isn't, then he can take his seat, and then if anybody does have any suggestions of amendments, it would be great to table those and flag those. But my suggestion is that we wouldn't wordsmith today, that we would leave that for the informal working group to weave in and come back with a proposal at our next meeting. So it would be great to hear those, Ms. Harris.
Perhaps if I could just comment on that point. So it's an excellent point. So just to catch a few people up on sort of what's happened to date. So back in December, when the three councils approved the shareholder committee, that was the time at which the terms of reference were agreed. The shareholder agreement itself would need to be changed to change the terms of reference. Having said that, there are a couple of matters that we do need to change in the shareholder agreement. So when it was originally signed, it was signed by the three councils, and we do want it to be the company to be a party to that agreement as well. So it needs to be updated. The timing for that is likely to be late April, May, that when we would be doing that, because it would be after the board is appointed. There is another amendment that we need to deal with in relation to the process for the nomination of mana whenua representatives. So we've got a couple of things already. So I think it's always envisaged that recommendations may come from the committee itself back to its shareholding councils for amendments to terms of reference if needed. So yes, definitely there's an opportunity coming up where I think if the committee could collate any of those things, have a discussion, and then maybe provide that recommendation back to the three councils, and they can be dealt with like that.
Thank you, Mr. Dyberg. That's a good point of clarification. What we're talking about here at the moment under this item are three policies: the code of conduct, the conflict of interest policy, and the confidentiality policy. What Mr. Dyberg has just referred to as the terms of reference themselves. We don't amend those as a committee. They would go back to the constituent shareholders for them to amend, but I'm very happy in the discussion stage to table any proposed amendments to the three policies and the terms of reference for that to be taken up for consideration and amendment outside of here. So when we get to the discussion, I'm very happy to hear anybody's suggestions on the terms of reference as well as these policies. Any other questions for clarification for Mr. Dyberg? Thank you. I move as... Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, just I had sent an email prior to today's meeting raising, I guess, some questions around some of those documents. And so I might just reframe that as a question to you, if that's all right, Chris. Just a number of the documents reference Te Tiriti, which is great. But I just wondered whether it was a deliberate drafting choice not to include reference to Treaty of Waitangi in those documents as well. And that I just wanted to flag that I was interested to understand if it was a deliberate drafting choice, and if not, keen to flag that as something that we look at through the process that the Chair has outlined.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Jennings. So I'm not sure what the rules are around that, or whether it's a valid choice or whether there's some guidance that we should use. Where these policies came from was when Julie and I were putting together the papers and the agenda for this inaugural meeting. Our colleagues over in the Wairarapa, who are forming the Wairarapa Taurua entity were very kind and gave us, we were able to copy their homework. It was great. And they had these 3 policies. So what we've just done is literally taken their policies, changed a few things. They were policies were originally drafted by Balgully, and you can tell they've been drafted by lawyers because they are quite, and I'm not being derogatory, they are, but they are quite fulsome. And so whatever precedents they used for that, but certainly we could, look into whether that's an issue or, and again, it may be a point of preference for the committee, I guess.
Councillor Jennings and I can testify to how erudite and to the point lawyers are, and thank you. No, any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tura.
Could probably be solved out in the next room, but I didn't receive Sam's email, so I wonder if afterwards we could tidy up which accounts are being, distributed to.
It's really important that we are able to communicate freely and frankly outside of the formal meeting times, and we will ensure that up-to-date contact details, as long as we have the consent of all members, are shared with all members for us to be able to communicate freely in between meetings. That would be really helpful. So thank you, Mr. Tura.
Can I just ask, Hayden, did you get 2 emails from me today? Because I wonder whether we got an error in our email distribution list that I think Hannah might have used to distribute Sam's email.
We'll make sure that we get that corrected as soon as possible. Team colleagues, I move from the chair that the committee adopt the Code of Conduct, Conflict of Interest and Confidentiality protocols to govern its membership. Remember the protocol, for those of you who are not familiar yet with the standing orders, motions are moved and seconded and then open for discussion. So I'm not going to jump straight to a vote. So I move that they be adopted. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Mayor Smith.
Kia ora, thanks, Chair. Look, if I could just say to my colleagues, they are working documents, and there is a number of alterations that I know Danielle would like to make, and look, we can discuss some of those other things that have been mentioned as well, but we've got to have something to start with, so we've got something. We started with it, the living documents, and we just work through them as we go. But it's important that we have something that's moved here today.
Mindful that we're not wordsmithing today, the motion has been moved and has been seconded. Perhaps, Ms Harris, you'd like to start with the discussion, detailing some of the suggested amendments from your perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's not really regarding the policies, as I said, it's really the terms of reference. And there was just 2 changes that we'd like to make. And one is adding an additional clause in terms of the Shareholders Committee's responsibilities. And we'd like to see the following paragraph added. Engaging with the company on behalf of the Shareholders Committee in relation to how the company shall work and engage with mana whenua, give effect to Te Tiriti o Waitangi and its principles, and establish and implement its Te Ao Māori framework. It's obviously vital that the mana whenua through the Shareholders Committee are giving that guidance to the board as it rolls out its responsibilities. So, and then the other one was around the quorum, that at least one of the quorum members must be from Ngā Tapuwai or Hou, and that's at 6A.
Thank you. Considering those 2 issues don't go to the policies and they will leave here for those to be taken up as recommendations for the councils and the possible changing of the terms of reference, it would be good if we could have some discussion as a committee and adoption or approval of that recommendation because it's unlikely to come back to us before it's considered. And I'd like to hear, I'd like to gauge our level of comfort and acceptance of those recommendations. So the two are the addition of, and I haven't got the wording right here, Ms. Harris, but that the company and its engagement is an obligation for the terms of reference that, actually the terms of reference, is it directed to the company or this committee? Is our working with mana whenua and our appreciation and adoption of the principles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the Treaty of Waitangi. And the second point is an element of the quorum, which at the moment requires there to be 5 and at least 1 councillor. Is that correct? 1 from each council, and the suggestion is that Ngā Tapuai Aho also be a representative, one of the 3, in order for there to be a valid quorum. Is that a correct summary? Yeah. How much time in talking just here to Mrs. White, she's happy to put that in a form of a paper that would come back to us, but I am mindful that we need to move things forward relatively quickly. I don't want to, my nervousness is about the terms of reference, that we want it not to go too far down the work stream that we have before it comes back to there, and I would prefer that we, I get the temperature of the room on those suggestions today. Mr. Daibu.
Yeah, maybe just, sorry to jump in to make a comment, but just to support basically what you're doing. We're going to talk about the work schedule later in the program, and you'll see there's a couple of things that are quite pressing for the committee to get on to, and you know, anything that you can deal with very quickly and then give to us to, you know, to be able to put into a paper back to the councils would be that would be quite good. So if you all felt that was something you could agree to today, we could take that offline then, and when we go and do the amendments, we can work on that, then they'll come back to the councils, and then, you know, we can, it's off your plate.
Are we members happy on the basis of that summary of the 2 suggested amendments for us to have a discussion on that? Mayor Smith.
Thanks, Chair. Look, the amendments that have just been read out, in my opinion, and without concurring with my council colleague, they're how we work in our council. So I'm not allergic to them at all. It's pretty standard, what I'd say business as usual when you're working with partners. So from our perspective, we would be happy to that they're tabled in some form, just to keep the conversation going.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Could I suggest that I'd like to move a motion that the principles, the recommendations has now been tabled, be taken for further consideration by the committee, or words to that effect. I think if we put it on the table, then we can move on, and I seek a seconder to support it.
I'd like to get to the end of this discussion today with having, if at all possible, a consensus as to whether we do adopt those as a recommendation, because they won't be directly adopted because we're not in control of the terms of reference. But I'd like to leave here today with approval. If it's not going to be, then yes, we can table it and we can bring it back to another meeting. But I'd like, if at all possible, for us to get a resolution on that today.
Chair, that's exactly what I was seeking, that we could seek that via way of a motion that we support in principle to move it forward.
I think probably the better procedural way is that Ms. Harris has moved it. Could I accept that as a seconder? You're too quick for me. You are most comfortable, I heard you say, then we've got a seconder. So the motion of a recommendation is for those two amendments that the committee recommend to the council's two variations, well, I'll call them A, B and C, 3 of the terms of reference in the form of the words that are being typed up at the moment. I've got a mover, I've got a seconder, we'll open up for discussion. Mr. Dyberg.
Yeah, sorry, I know I'm breaching protocol already, but I just had a sudden thought that it's important clarification. So at the moment, the quorum is 5, and then it goes on to say, including one of each. So we just want to make sure, are we saying the quorum is still 5, one each from each council and one from Ngā Tapu Waeho, or is it 6?
My understanding is quorum, well, I've already proved myself to be not great at maths, but if somebody is going to, unless somebody corrects me, that the quorum stays at 5, but that it must be, there are 2 conditions on that. And one is that
yeah, I just want to make sure we're all clear about which way you're going, because you could do it either way. But so it's just proposal from the mover of the motion is it stays at 5, but there'd be 2 caveats on that. Yes.
Councillor from each and representative Ngā Tapu Waeho. Yeah. As long as that works, if we're thinking here doing the math, if that makes sense, then that's the motion that's been moved and seconded. Thanks for that clarification. Mayor Watson.
Well, because I'd be speaking to it, I need to let the mover speak further, or is it considered you've already spoken? And according to your, if I read the standing orders correctly, the seconder has second right to speak at this council. Is that correct? So I wait my turn. I'll go for it.
Councillor Wilson.
I'm happy that I've said what needed to be said, Chair.
Mayor Watson.
I support the principle. This is the way we need to work together, and if situations change, and they may well change because of the quorum requirements, there may well be subcommittees or committees, etc., and we'll have to understand that those may have different requirements. But we're here as a partnership. I'd support it.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak to the motion? I'm getting the hang of the buttons now, so anybody else? I am just pausing and delaying because we've got some fast typing. And it would be nice for me to read the motion and put that motion to a vote before I then go back to the issue of the policies that are on the table, and for there to be any other contribution as to suggested amendments of those policies, not for moving and agreeing today, but to table those to be discussed in the intervening time. Councillor Jennings, I'm aware as this is being typed up that Te Tiriti o Waitangi, I note what you said earlier, and that will be something in the context of the wider discussion at councils for the terms of reference, but for our working group in conjunction with council officers to be able to address and bring back as a recommendation next time. But I acknowledge your question earlier. So if I just start reading slowly, then hopefully I don't outstrip the typing. The motion is that the committee recommend to the respective shareholder councils that shareholder agreement terms of reference for the committee are amended. A, clause 2, add T, engaging with the company on behalf of the shareholders committee in relation to how the company shall engage with mana whenua to the effect, to give effect to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We can just see a little amendment coming in there. And its principles and establish and implement its Te Ao Māori framework. B, clause 6, adjust 6A, that a quorum to remain at 5 members, but now require a member from each of the shareholder councils in Ngā Tapawai Aho. Great. That's the motion. It's been moved and seconded. Is any other discussion? Councillor Wilson, your light's still on, but I think that's, do you have something you want to say? Or it's probably a failure of me to turn it off, to be honest. Thank you. Time to vote. I put that to the vote. For 1 and 2. That's the, I'll take them together at the moment. I'm not hearing that anybody, unless there is a proposal that they should be taken as 2 separate paragraphs. I'll put them to the vote. Thank you, councillors. Thank you. Councillor Jennings?
Yeah, Chair. Representative Tuaroa had just whispered to me that he had intended to vote yes on that, but obviously couldn't because he was out of the room, so I just thought I'd signal that on his behalf, but he's back now. So.
Yeah. I'll take that as a 4, Mr. Tuaroa. That's 9 and 4, no abstentions or against. The motion is carried. Colleagues, if I can take us back to the policies, is there anybody else who would like to table some suggestions? You're certainly not, the working group will not be limited to these. They will be able to make recommendations as they see fit to bring back here on the policies. But if you do have any that you would like to table here, then you're free to do so. Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Look, I just wanted to reiterate the question I asked Mr. Steinberg before. I'm really happy with the process that you've outlined. It's a wordsmithing aspect from my perspective, and so really comfortable that we can talk about it through that process. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else like to table anything for those? If we're all happy with that way forward, then the motion is that's been moved by myself and seconded that the committee adopt the Code of Conduct, Conflict of Interest and Confidentiality Protocols to govern its members. That's not subject to anything, but we know that we will have a working group that can work on any amendments that might be there, because we understand that those are a stake in the sand in the sense that we need them, but they might be iterative over time. I'll put it to the vote, members. Is that right? Sorry. I thought you were talking within that. So just for clarity, I've taken those as a job lot, those 3 policies. And have we voted? Eight. Who's the 9th? Perhaps we just favour. Great. Thank you, Ms. Harris. That's fantastic. 9-4, no against, and no abstentions. The motion is carried. Itemised schedule of meetings. Ms. White, you are going to address us on that, or take it as read?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to note your comments earlier that this is the initial proposal for schedule of meetings, just so that we can notify the public appropriately under Local Official Information and Meetings Act. Very happy to work with respective locations to work out potentially where we could move to over the course of the next calendar year. And I intend to bring that back to you in March so that we can get into your very busy diaries with sufficient time.
Fantastic. I do know that it's worded in a term of a formal motion, so I will move as the chair that that the committee agree that the following meetings be held at Palmerston North City Council chambers That might limit us to this venue for the first three meetings, but you have my commitment to explore where else we might. 32 Te Marae o Hene the Square, Palmerston North, on the 13th of March, 27th of March, and the 30th of April. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Jennings, as a seconder. Open it up for any discussion. Councillor Wilson.
I guess it might have been hidden in your in the previously adopted standard orders, but we are able to Zoom, and is that acceptable to this committee? I think I saw reference to it. Just checking that.
Apologies, Councillor Wilson, I did mean to speak to that. Yes, remote attendance is accepted under these standing orders.
Yes.
And the remote attendance with Palmerston North is through Teams links.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Watson? Sorry,
similar question from me. These meetings will always be number one on my priority, but on the Friday, 27th of March, that evening, I am flying out. And if there is a Zoom potential, I'll look to try and take that. Otherwise, we'll need to look at the alternate. My apologies to the group.
Well, thank you for signalling that. Comforted by the fact that we have alternates in place, and sometimes things can't be helped. But thank you for your indication that these meetings will take your priority, but as I said, can't be helped. Anybody else? Thank you. Let's move to voting, colleagues. If you could vote, we'll have it up on the screen. Thank you. Passed. We'll take that as passed. The work schedule is up next, item 10. Mr. Dyberg, did you want to say work schedule? It's for, I understand it's for noting as opposed to actually a formal motion. It's probably more a warning than it is anything else. Mr. Dyberg.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is a bit of a warning. But seriously, this committee is not for the faint-hearted. There is a reasonably big workload, particularly for the first year. So what we've been trying to do is give you it's more about a bit of an indication of what's coming up. We've making really good progress on that first item, so we can tick that off. But we're just sort of trying to give you a bit of an indication of the things that are coming up. So just going back to the last item, excuse me, the meeting next month. So, and we're going to go into the board discussion next, but that first meeting will, may only have one item on the agenda depending on, where we get to, but it may well be just the panel bringing back its recommendations on board appointments, so that isn't too bad. But then the big piece of work that the committee needs to get into next is the statement of the expectations. And I guess for those of you who have been involved in providing the statement of expectation for the CCO, it's not going to be massively dissimilar, but what it will be, of course, we can only have one statement of expectation across the three councils, and and I think there's going to have to be a lot of thought given to exactly what is the guidance you want to give to the company, and getting that balance between conveying the important strategic matters you want them to take into account, and not getting too far into the detail, but giving you enough detail that you're comfortable that. So I think there's a bit of work to be done there. And that first meeting on 27th of March, I think what we're envisaging is that's the discussion where we'll be able to bring you, and we'll be working with the chair and across, and this is where some of these sort of out of sequence sort of discussions and meetings might go on with those people that are keen to talk about. Let's try and come up with some ideas about how this process is going to work. That statement of expectation, it needs to be done fairly quickly, because It is a key input to the company's water services strategy. So you need to get it to the company in time so that it can then look at that statement of expectation and be able to start building it into as it develops its water services strategy. So we're talking probably by the end of June, I think our timeframe was, Julie, to have that done. So that will be a fairly big workload. There's a number of other things that be going on, and so big one being the transfer agreement. So this is an agreement that happens between each council and the new entity, and it covers exactly what assets are going to be transferred into the entity, what debt. It'll cover things like the people that are going, the services. There's a huge number of schedules that are going to go. Now, what we want to do before we really get into that is to take a step back and think about that on a principles basis. And we think that actually this committee would be a really good place to talk about what would the principles of the transfer be. Reason that will be helpful is because we want to take the same approach across each three councils, and if we are struggling to say what do we do with this thing that we've got to transfer, we can go back to the principles. And there'll be a few other things like that, that's mentioned there. Then when some documents are being developed, and this will be things like the company has to do a significance and engagement policy, and I'm sure that will be something that the committee might want to have a look at, and it doesn't get to approve it, but it does get to provide comment to the company, and I think that's the way that the company will use to sort of get some of that input from its shareholders without having to go back to every shareholder. You'll get to have a look at drafts of the water services strategy and provide some comment on that. That document will need to be pretty much done by the end of December. It's sort of on a similar time frame as your long-term plans, and subject to that significance and engagement policy, it's likely to have to go to public consultation. So there are a number of probably meaty documents that will come through, and what I'd imagine is that there'll need to be a bit of work, and probably this is where the chair's workload will probably come in to help point out and distill those documents down to things that you can look at and comment, and then provide comment back to the board. When we get the board in place, the other thing that's likely to happen is, when you get into BAU, it's likely to be quarterly, but I'd imagine there'd be a hui between this committee and the board. It'd be very similar to the way things work on electricity lines companies, and I've been involved in one of those boards, and just to make sure that we've got that alignment, because particularly once we get through this year and the company is operating and delivering against its water services strategy, it will be your job to be the monitor on behalf of the shareholder of how they're performing against the things that they've signed up to. So and that's why this sort of paper is just for noting. It's just a quick conversation to start introducing you to some of the things that are going to be coming up. But what will happen is, as we get closer to those things, we'll provide briefings on the specifics of what's coming up, and that's like on the 27th of March, is it, that we're going to be talking about the process for the statement of expectation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dybeck. Mayor Smith.
After all of that, I've forgotten what I was going to say.
That's right. Councillor Jennings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Chris, you flagged that there will be a discussion on the 27th about process in terms of the statement of expectations, and that's about this committee and the process that this committee will use. What I'm potentially interested in unpacking a little bit, and this can be taken away and further information come after this meeting, is that it's ultimately up to each council how it wants to direct, advise, prepare their representatives here at the shareholding committee to feed into that process. But has there been thinking or options developed around the kind of processes that can be presented to the councils to assist with that process so that there isn't a significant divergence in terms of approach and therefore, potential for inconsistency or challenge when we come back to this table?
Thanks, Councillor Jennings. That's actually a really very good point, and I think that has to be part of the conversation on the 27th as well. So, as you point out, you're here as representatives of your home organisations, and the reason we're here is because you've delegated the power to try and bring this thing together. But clearly, it needs to start at the councils. We've already, and it was raised with the Palmerston North City Council on Wednesday by Councillor Wood, and he raised exactly this question in terms of how that was going to work. So there's a general question around how this committee interacts with its councils, and I think that probably lends itself to some sort of a formal reporting process. So, once a quarter, maybe there would be the chair might front up to each council and give a report on the work of the committee. But I think in relation to the statement of expectation, there's a little bit more there that has to happen. So, what's been suggested by the DIA, they have in some of their documents, and they talk about an administrating council or something like that, and what they imagine is someone will be taking the pen, I guess, on behalf of all of the joint partners and sort of bringing it together. That's an approach we could do here, but clearly there's the wishes of the councils need to sort of feed in, and then that needs to be distilled down, and hopefully the same approaches happen, because you don't want Palmerston North City Council giving a 50-page list of things it wants done, and Ringatiki Council giving 1 page of principles that I'd like to see. So we sort of have to have a bit of a framework and a common approach. So I think this is something that we'll work up for the 27th, and we'll probably put some papers out and do some thinking about how that's going to work. But you're right, it starts at the council, comes in, and there's going to have to be a bit of backwards and forwards. So I'm sure each council will want to have some input along the way, and I think to some extent it could be for each council to decide exactly the extent to which they want to have that close alignment. But yeah, we want to have some commonality in the process.
Thank you, Chair. I remember what I was going to say now.
My experience is that when a politician forgets what they're going to say, you take it as a blessing and you move quickly on. But I'm glad that your idea has come back to you.
Because Councillor Jennings jogged my memory because it was almost exactly the same. So we've got, it is really important that we do clarify that, because my council, and technically Councillor Isabella and myself are here representing Palmerston North City, but we've got expectation of our fellow councillors that they need to understand what the expectations are. Is there a formal letter? Is there something that sets out clear guidelines of what is happening? And Chris, you are so right that if we come up with a 50-page document and HDC have got 1 page, it just doesn't. It's not right. So there does need to be something that we all sort of can fundamentally agree to, bearing in mind it is this committee that sort of has that SOE sort of. It's not really the councils. It's we are their representatives. So it is, and we're probably going to need a little bit of guidance on that as well. Our council's already brought it up formally in this chamber just on Wednesday. So and I did say that we would mention it today. So Councillor Isabella and I sort of joined up on that we understand what our colleagues are after, but by the same token, we've got partners here too. So both councils and mana whenua. So we're mindful of that, but we do understand that there does need to be something for the councils, because they are all perhaps a little bit nervous because this is the first time we've sort of gone into this together. I've remembered. Thank you.
Mayor Watson.
A very similar sorts of comments. I think there will have to be some protocols worked out around what information goes where. There will be public excluded to this group. There'll be another clarification on what is public excluded to the wider group, including councils, and each council will have its own way of dealing with with this group. It may be all of full council, or it could be a working party within each council. And then there's the wider comms around agreed release outside of that. So there's certainly, I agree that there's some work to be done in this space.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? Thank you, Mr. Dyberg. A document that would have been helpful when you interviewed me. Just kidding. There's a formidable amount of work here, and I think to add that I will be ensconced in all the aspects here. We're going to have to just see how that works out. It's going to be on trust and confidence of the committee, and at times it's certainly my intention over the next 2 weeks to be able to touch base with all of you, to come out to where you are, to be able to share some time with you, to get to know you, to hear your concerns, your hopes, your aspirations for this committee, and to understand those. And as part of that we can open up those avenues for correspondence, because between meetings there's going to be a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. And what I don't want is, or what I do want, is to ensure that between meetings this committee is still brought along on that journey, and you don't feel as a committee that somehow you've been left behind, notwithstanding the fact there's we're going to have to go along at a fair clip to get this work schedule done. That is noted. Thank you, Mr. Dyberg. So that's noted. It's not for formal passing. Ladies and gentlemen, that moves us to the end of part 1 of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, we're now moving to part 2, or part B, that is the exclusion of the public. Now, according to legislation, that can only be done for particular reasons, and you'll see on the screens in front of you those reasons. I'm not going to go through those, but I would ask, and thank you for your attendance for anybody who's not on the committee, but thank you. The officials and staff are able to stay in the room, as well as committee members, but we will transition now into part 2, the confidential part of the agenda. Thank you. Oh, we have to move and second it, that's right. Well, I move that we move into part 2, the confidential part of the meeting. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Mayor Smith, and thank you for that guidance, Ms. White. All those in favour, let's vote. Let's vote. I'm used to a show of hands rather than a pushing of a button, but can we just have a show of hands? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. No abstentions? Carried. Thank you.